This summer, I've had the chance to work in some sister congregations of ours, at First Presbyterian Church in Woodruff, and also at our sister church in Landrum. This has been part of the transition that we've been going through for the last 6 months. In Woodruff, I had the chance to go to a pastor's meeting, a community meeting, earlier in the summer. I was a short-timer then. I only had a commitment with them through August. We've extended that to a year now. I'll work with them a little bit each week. But then I was there only for a few months. I was the outsider at the table. And I went to this meeting. It was held at a Black Baptist church in Woodruff. The pastor, as it turns out, was a roommate of mine in college at Wofford. And we were sitting around talking about ecumenical issues and community issues, ways that folks could work together. And at a point in the meeting, he stopped us. And he said, "I want to show y'all something." He got us all up from the table, walked us over to a wall in that meeting room, and showed us a framed picture. There were several photographs in it. At that church, they take class photos every year. Folks of different age groups in the congregation. And every year you can see who fits into what age bracket. Imagine doing that here at First Pres. And he pointed out to one woman in the top class. He said, "This woman died this spring." He said she was the most amazing woman, 106 years old. I'm looking at this picture. It's a little black woman, 106 years old. He said, Woodruff is having a rough time right now. We've lost a lot of our industry. Many mills have closed. We haven't really found our footing yet. People are depressed. The economy is depressed. A lot of our housing is rental housing, and it's falling apart. And some of the tenant situations are not good. Drug use and drug dealing have become rampant. He said this woman lived in her house for a long time. But over time, the house across the street from her, a rental house, had become used by drug dealers, a place from which drug dealers operated, one of the worst. And she watched this happen. And one day, this 106-year-old little black woman walked across the street and banged on the door. And before the door could open, she said, "I know what y'all are doing in there. I know what y'all are doing in there. It is bad for you. It is bad for the people that come to see you. You are going to get hurt. They're going to get hurt. You need to cut this out right now." Now imagine if a 38-year-old whippersnapper in Woodruff walked across the street and banged on that door. I wouldn't have gotten 2 words out of my mouth before I was dead. I'm serious. I would not be standing here with you today. Just imagine if I had tried to do what she did. 106 years old, walks across the street, knocks on the door of a drug den, and calls people out, speaks the truth to them. What is the gift that you can give? When we share our gifts, Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 12 and 13, a community of power and love emerges. Even those of us that seem weak, sick, lost, those of us that have failed. If a 106-year-old black lady in Woodruff can face down drug dealers, everybody has a gift. Everybody has a gift they can give. When we share our gifts, when we give our gifts and receive the gifts of others, even people that we don't like, whose gifts we don't like, who we wish would go away, when we do that, a community of power and love emerges. Share your gift. A few years ago, I had streamlined the mission program here. I had worked very hard on it over several years, trying to focus down the plethora of mission programs that we are engaged in, give it some thematic focus and geographic focus. It took about 3 years to do. I met with committee after committee. I hammered this thing down, polished it off, finally got it approved by the mission committee, and by the session, it was done, posted on the website, in the session minutes, finished. And then Ken Compton called me. And he said, I've been traveling to the Philippines on business about every 6 weeks. And I see street children in the capital city, Manila. Over 1 million street children in Manila. He said, I want to do something to help. Could you help me find a ministry that could help? I had just eliminated all of our East Asian missions in order to focus on the Caribbean and parts of Africa. And I said, sure. And we met with a lot of failure, things that didn't work, but we found a little mom and pop ministry, a feeding program and an orphanage run by an accountant, all volunteer staff. Ken traveled to the Philippines on business and he visited. And every time he goes back, he visits. We started to build a little support. He gave some gifts, some colleagues gave gifts, the mission committee came behind it. Within a year, we had doubled the size of the orphanage, purchased land, doubled the size of the orphanage, doubled the size of the feeding program, and it went on from there. This summer, as I've been preparing to leave, a nonprofit in Los Angeles that's had to close its doors has sent us the remaining funds. When nonprofits dissolve, they have to give their remaining funds to a charitable cause. They sent us their remaining funds to route them to Precious Heritage Ministries in the Philippines. Engineers that work in the Philippines around the world have begun sending gifts to First Presbyterian Spartanburg for us to connect them with Precious Heritage Ministries in Manila in the Philippines. First Presbyterian Church Spartanburg is the foundation for Precious Heritage Ministries in the Philippines. Share your gift. When David Rennick left and we went into the interim period, Jimmy Edwards contacted me. He said, I want to start a program called Transparent Men. It brings men together across racial lines to just fellowship, have breakfast, and get to know each other one Saturday a month. I said, Jimmy, we're in an interim period. We've lost a pastor. We haven't found a new pastor. Let's just wait. So Jimmy invited me to breakfast with the guy who founded the program in Cleveland. He said, we need to do this. And I said, Jimmy, can we just please wait? We're running as hard as we can. He said, Scott, we need to do this. Tom came and opened up many doors that we had kept closed. And Transparent Men began to meet. Jimmy said, I'm not going to ask for any staff support. I'm just going to do it. That is the way to get things done at this church. Just do them. And month after month, men from congregations all around this county meet on the first Saturday of the month to have breakfast and to fellowship, just to get to know each other. 500 years of racial division. 500 years. And Jimmy Edwards just jumps over it. Share your gift. Last spring, Gloria Close called me. She's working with a student who was really struggling, not accessing many resources available to her through the public school system, resources that are free to her. And Gloria was trying to figure out why. And she came to know that this student was living in a flop house, a motel. And she was protecting her family from the possibility of being separated by them, by DSS. Protecting them by not accessing those resources, like food, like lunch. preserving her family's dignity and making sure her family stayed together. Gloria said, it doesn't have to be this way. You can use these resources. She started to help the student access them. And then she visited where the student was living and realized there were hundreds of children like this. There's an epidemic in our country of children who have only ever lived in motels. It's a hidden form of homelessness, and it is brutal. Gloria said, we've got to do something for these kids this summer. All they're going to have is a TV set and an empty parking lot. And I said, great, what do you want to do? And she said, I don't know. So we started making it up, developed a summer enrichment program. 60 volunteers from this church and other churches came to help. Penny Wright stepped forward to help lead, and Ryan Reynolds did it this summer. The Church of the Advent let us use their bus. I would never have let them use our bus. Ben Carell, our insurance agent, would have killed me. But they let us use it. I drove the Church of the Advent's bus for the CAST program last summer. And the program grew and grew. We haven't solved all of those problems. We can't solve them all by ourselves. We do it with the people that we serve. But one of the hotels where we've worked has no more children in it. 3 of those families have stabilized their own housing. Share your gift. Jerry Keel came to me and said, I run a little homeless program from veterans. We've been feeding people at the Denny's Plaza once a month, but we can't go there anymore. I'm looking for a place to do it. Where can I do it? And I said, well, what about the Arthur Center? So we gave that a try, and Jerry and his colleague Pamela Bagwell, who is here with us today, began feeding homeless folks out of the Arthur Center on the second Tuesday night of every month. More than 30 people showed up the first night, receiving food and also little care packages, toiletries, and ways to clean themselves, toothbrush and toothpaste, toilet paper, basic necessities to stay healthy and clean. And most of all, Jerry and Pamela know these people. They have a relationship with them. They talk with them and follow up with them and counsel them. Food and hygiene, and most of all, relationship. It was so successful that Jerry said, we need to do this another night every month as well. So we started doing it the 4th Tuesday of every month. And Jerry said, I really think First Pres should run that 4th Tuesday. I said, that's great, but I'm on my way out, and I don't know how we're going to do that. And sure enough, it didn't work very well. Jerry and Pamela were having to do all the work. It wasn't really clicking. So they came to me in May and said, maybe we shouldn't do this. We'd like to see it continue, but we don't have a leader who can step in from First Pres. Can you help us find one? And I said, I'm on my way out. I really don't know how that's going to work, but let's advertise it. Let's pray about it. Let's give it 4 months. You'll run it for 4 more months, and let's see what happens. This was May. Everybody's about to go on vacation. To be quite honest, and Jerry's probably going to throw something at me now, I had zero hope of it working. We said a prayer. We put it in the bulletin. In late July, I was down at the beach, and I was going through last things for this transition. And I came across some stuff for that ministry, and I thought, well, it's too bad that 4th Tuesday is going to fail. Lots of other things have worked. CAST has worked. The Philippines have worked. Transparent Men has worked. Lots of stuff has worked. Can't win them all. The 2nd Tuesday of the month, homeless program will continue, but not the 4th. I came back. There were 20 blankets stacked up in my office. And I said, Dee Dee, what are these for? She said, oh, it's for the homeless program. Jerry's coming by to pick them up later. And sure enough, in a few hours, Jerry and Pamela walked in my office. They said, what did you do? And I said, what do you mean? They said, what did you do? I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. Frankly, I haven't done anything. The 4th Tuesday in July, when all meetings are canceled, right? 13 First Pres folks showed up to work that homeless ministry. And one of our newer families, Tina Hamilton and her children, Will and Beth, just stepped forward and said, we feel God has called us to lead this 4th Tuesday mission. What do we do? What? Share your gift. 2 years ago, I heard a poet present at a conference that one of our new members, Jennifer Parker, hosts at USC Upstate every year on preventing abuse for children. Marlanda DeKine. She was amazing, and I love poetry. I have a weakness for it. I know it's weird, and I don't care. And I said, I met with her, and I said, I'd love for you to do a performance in the chapel. It's a wonderful place. It'd be a fantastic place to do a performance. And so she came and looked at it. She had a colleague with her, too, and they looked at it. And I said, what do you think? They said, this is great. This is a great space. We'd like to suggest something a little bit different. And I said, what? They said, we'd like to host facilitated discussions on racism and use poetry as a healing mechanism in those discussions. Could we do that? And I thought, how is this going to go over? But we said yes. And now every month, more than 80 people come to First Presbyterian Church on the first Monday of the month at 6 o'clock to talk about race and racism. And these conversations are hard. They are serious. They are raw. We talk about death. We talk about violence. We talk about mass incarceration. Why 1 in 3 black men will probably be arrested in their lifetime, but only 1 in 17 white men. We talk about very difficult things, and it is powerful. And now, folks in Greenville have asked us to come there. Every second Tuesday of the month in Greenville, over 100 people gather for these same conversations. 7 cities in South Carolina and North Carolina have asked Speaking Down Barriers to come and host these community discussions. 7 cities. For 2 years we've done this, before this last year of so much violence. And when bad things happened this year, when black men died at the hands of white police officers, or when white police officers were gunned down, when 9 people were murdered in their church in Charleston, we were already meeting. And people knew that they could come here to talk about what had happened. From Charleston and Columbia, Orangeburg and Greenville, and every neighborhood in Spartanburg. When Walter Scott died in April, shot in the back 8 times by a police officer, people came here to First Presbyterian Church in Spartanburg to talk it out. What? Share your gift. It's more than just good people doing good things. This May, I was invited to lead the Bill's Book Club reading. My dad has been doing it. He had shoulder surgery. He couldn't do it. He asked me to do it. So I said, sure. The book was The Invention of Wings by Sue Monk Kidd. This is a story of 2 sisters from Charleston, South Carolina, the Grimke sisters, who were abolitionists and feminists in the 1820s and 1830s. They were hated when they were alive. They are South Carolina heroes. They absolutely paved the way for the emancipation of slaves in our country. That was the reading in May. In April, Walter Scott was shot in Charleston. In May, we read a book about race and racism in Charleston, in Bill's Book Club, on the same night that Speaking Down Barriers packed out the chapel for discussion. The same Monday night, at the same time. I had to be at the book club instead of with this group. More than 100 people gathered at First Presbyterian to talk about the painful legacy of race in our state and the way violence hasn't stopped. Here. I don't know how Bill did that. He chose that book the summer before he was dead. Bill Arthur picked that book And it landed right in the middle of everything. And the next month, Emmanuel 9. Share your gift. The world is full of suffering, but you are full of magic. I've spent a lot of time talking to my staff members through this transition. And Holt Andrews said to me, I understand the budget cuts. I understand the redistribution of the workload. I understand you want to do this community work. I get all that. But who is going to be around to say yes to this kind of stuff? I hope you can tell in these stories that my first response to all of them was to want to say no. These things are interruptions. They get in the way. They create problems. They're dangerous. They're risky. Some people really don't like them. So I can tell you who's not going to be around to want to say no. But who will say yes? And the answer is right in front of us. Ken Compton, Jimmy Edwards, Gloria Close, Penny Wright, Ryan Reynolds, Jerry Keel, Pamela Bagwell, Tina Hamilton, Beth and Will Delaney, Marlanda DeKine. You say yes. When God calls out your gifts, and God is going to do it, when God calls out your gifts, say yes.